In this video, I'm going to be attempting to beat all of Halo CE on Legendary without using any human weapons. This means I'm going to be limited to just the plasma pistol, plasma rifle, and needler. So that means no precision weapons. The rules for this challenge are I'm only allowed to shoot Covenant weapons. Obviously, on most levels you spawn with human weapons, but that's fine, I just can't shoot them. I'm also not going to be allowing myself to use frag grenades. Finally, I'm allowed to use both human and Covenant vehicles. I thought I was going to be able to get a plasma pistol right away on POA from the first couple of grunts, but after I beat them up, their guns no-clipped into the back rooms. This meant I had to go into the cafeteria completely unarmed. Somehow, I was able to melee a grunt and get his gun in the middle of a Covenant squad. Even more surprisingly, I made it out alive and was able to get a health pack. Fortunately, after that, there's an elite with his back turned, and I could kill him for a plasma rifle. In my first real gunfight, instead of using cover, I ran in like an idiot. The only reason I didn't die was because the red elite had something better to do. Clearing these enemies did allow me to get an overshield. More importantly, I got plasma nades. Almost all of my overshield was spent killing 2 red elites. Since the pillar bottom is basically all tight hallways, plasma nades are very helpful at dealing with elites. Basically, every fight I could spam them because of how many grunts and elites dropped. I once again got another overshield, and once again it was all used up in the very next fight.
You serious?
The staircase is the only part of the level besides the beginning that isn't just a hallway, but that did not stop me from just spamming plasmas. Besides just spamming grenades, the second best way I found to kill elites was with overcharging with the pistol, then finishing it off with the rifle. The last section of the level was really just more of what I had been doing the whole time, spamming grenades.
Tactical nuke incoming!
At the very last fight, I did actually run out of plasmas, but the ones I had thrown had left everything so low that I easily finished them all off. At the beginning of Halo, I went to go do the grenade jump to skip the first trigger of enemies, until I realized I can't because I can't use frag grenades. My plan then swapped to running to the bridge to trigger the first dropship, then running back to hide so I could sneak up to someone and take them out for their gun. This did not work because this group of Covenant were hyper aware and I could never get close enough. What I ended up doing to get my gun was just wait under the dropship and kill one of the grunts as they got dropped off. With his needler, I was able to kill another grunt and get a real gun. With the plasma pistol, I was able to clear out the rest of the area. Well, I cleared the area of ground troops. There were still 2 banshees being really annoying. I spent all of my rifle ammo and a ton of pistol ammo taking one of them down. That rewarded me with a full rifle and the other banshee just peaced out. It cost me a lot of health to do that, so the next fight was kinda scary, but I got through it. At the Forerunner structure, I used the Marines as a distraction to climb up it and get a health pack. There were a ton of dropships here that I really was not in the mood to fight, so I walked away. All I had to do was do a grenade jump to get over the pit in the naturally formed cave.
This cave is not a natural formation.
Before I could activate the bridge, I needed to clear out all the Covenant. This was actually kind of hard because of how dark it was. I brightened it for you guys, but while I was playing, I was looking like Nick Merckx trying to fight the Covenant. The 3 red elites guarding the button were easy to kill with plasma nades. Because of me not having the Warthog, it took me forever to walk all the way to the first drop pod, and when I got there, let's just say I took the Marines out back. This did use up all my plasma nades, so I had to kill some elites at the next drop pod to save the Marines. At the final drop pod, I did need to kill all the Covenant. After killing some, I got to my Marines. This was a horrible spot to be in because for some reason, here all the elites chase you down to the ends of the earth. I ran away and left the area through one of the entrances. I then came back through the other entrance. My plan was to do the same thing I did when I played this level during my AR only challenge. The moment I got near the elites, they ran at me. I only lived because I threw all my plasmas while running back. Once I got out into the open, it was over for the elites. For some reason, they all pathed to in front of this tree. That meant I could slowly shoot them from out of their range until they all died. Then I repeated the process until I had quite the corpse pile. All that was left to do was kill one jackal. Getting a gun on TNR was a lot simpler. All I had to do was sneak up to a sleeping grunt and punch him. After taking his gun, I prioritized killing all the grunts and jackals because I wanted the elites to get in the shade turrets. That would make them a lot easier to kill. Unfortunately, there were 2 shade turrets and 3 elites, so I did have to kill one of them normally, and that took almost all of my HP. After that, clearing the rest of the area was easy. I now had to do the next area on very low HP. I first tried to kill some of the Covenant on the ledge in front of me, and when the elite showed up, I got a lucky stick on him. The other elite had a needler, which made him really easy to 1v1 with the rifle. While I was killing the last elite, a grunt that I had missed shot me in the back, so even though I had gotten a health back, I was once again on low health. That wasn't that big of a deal because the next area isn't too hard because of an active camo. I just needed to get to it. Since I had the element of surprise, I stuck one of the elites just to remove him from the equation. Then there was another elite, but because I had been poking him so much with the pistol, by the time I rushed him, he was super low and easy to kill. With the active camo, I killed the elite reinforcements, then me and my marines cleared out the rest of the grunts. The Gravlift fight is usually really easy when you play normally because you can time a frag to blow up the second a wave spawns. I tried to do that with plasma nades, but they just took too long to explode. Instead of praying while throwing plasmas, I went back to the entrance of the area. There I would use my plasma weapon to take the shield off the elites. This had 2 effects. One, that made it so the ARs of my marines did more damage to the elite, and that would cause him to die first, making the other Covenant in the wave panic. I repeated this until the hunters got dropped off. I'm very used to being able to just one-shot hunters in CE with the pistol or the sniper. Fortunately, the hunters in CE have a very easy attack to dodge, so even though it took forever for the plasma guns to kill them, it wasn't too hard. The wave fight inside the Covenant ship was very easy. I used plasmas to deal with the groups of jackals and grunts, and the sword elites died before they could even get to me. The only annoying part was having to take more time to kill more hunters. When I got my active camo, I ran to the next room where I encouraged a grunt to get close enough to unlock a door for me, allowing me to skip another wave fight. The next room was the hangar. I wanted to do the grenade jump to skip it, but I normally do it with plasmas plus a frag. My attempts to do it with just plasmas were less than ideal. I decided I would just do this part normally. Let me tell you, this was not very fun. Dealing with more waves of enemies was one thing, but having to kill Covenant on the floors above me was very annoying. All the Covenant weapons in this game are not good at range. I'm not going to show you all of it because it's boring, but it took me forever, and the cherry on top was having to kill 2 more hunters. When I went up the hallways to the 3rd level, I did the same thing I did in POA, grenade spamming. Escorting Captain Keys wasn't really that bad. I was able to mostly stay ahead of him and clear everything. He even face-tanked a fully charged pistol shot from me. The Marines did get their get back on me by throwing a frag at me. After killing one more squad by nade spamming, I was finally done. When I started Silent Cartographer, just like before, getting guns was easy. This time, it was because of some overextended grunts. I did not plan on using these guns to help my Marines. If you are familiar with this level, you know what I was planning on doing next. Because of how long the last level was, I planned on doing the Warthog skip, where you throw yourself through a door as it closes. I have no idea why, but I am incapable of doing this trick with a keyboard and mouse.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Once I plugged in the controller, I was able to do it. I then did something kind of dumb. I dropped all the way down to the bottom. There was no point in doing this because I still needed to fight everything on my way back up. To kill the 2 red elites, I threw a distraction grenade and punched them in the back. With my overshield, I was able to do a nade jump up to an active camo. I used it to easily clear the next room. To make the hunters easier to kill, I baited one of them down at a time to come to the room below. I don't know if it was because I had already shot him a ton, but the second hunter seemed to die really fast to the Needler. The top level had a ton of elites, jackals, and grunts. I first went for the jackals up above me. That way I could kill the big group of grunts and an elite from above. Killing them gave me some plasminades that I used on the elites.
What is that?
Because my Warthog was still where I parked it, I used it to drive past the stealth elites and get an overshield while I waited for the Pelican to come. Then I drove back up and got in. When I started AOTC, I thought the best strategy would be to run past all the Covenant in the hallway. I tried this a couple of times to zero success. Then I realized there were shade turrets right there. It cost me a lot of health, but I was able to kill the two elites, and with their guns, I killed the grunts. Now that I had a plasma pistol, I was able to clear the next room. When I walked onto the bridge, the craziest thing happened. I must have lost my footing because I fell. Fortunately, I was able to catch myself on the side of a cliff. And you wouldn't believe it, but I fell again, this time onto a lower part of the cliff. After one more accidental fall, I was at the bottom of the canyon. After getting in a ghost, I drove all the way to the end of the canyon. Here, I kept getting lost. I ran into 2 different locked doors, but eventually, after wandering around enough, I went through the correct door. Here, I was able to get a Banshee and fly to the end of the level. Getting a gun on Guilty Spark was the easiest so far. A dead grunt and his gun got thrown at me. I used it to kill some jackals, then almost got 1v1'd by the last one. After getting a health pack, I spotted a super spooky figure.
Bye, have a great time!
While the Covenant were running out of the facility, I killed one for their Needler. Inside, the next couple fights were just against jackals and grunts, which were not difficult at all. I did have some fun punching the dead body of a Marine, because it made a cool sound. At the first fight with the Flood, the plasma pistol did a good job against the infection forms. I expected the Needler to be good with its super combine against the combat forms, but it was just so ammo inefficient. I ran out after like the first encounter. I didn't expect this, but spamming the pistol actually put down the combat forms decently fast. This gave me some hope that the library wouldn't be too bad. I was able to get more ammo after third-partying a fight between the Flood and Covenant. There was one annoying part with a group of jackals shooting me from above, but once I got up to them, they fell over. I picked up an overshield. Half of it instantly got depleted because the active camo I picked up decided not to work. When it did decide to do its job, I jumped across the room so I could skip some more wandering around. I knew when I activated this bridge, a bunch of Flood would spawn, so I threw all of my grenades. I thought I killed them all because I got a checkpoint. I turned the corner and they were all there. I backed up while shooting my 2 guns and somehow didn't die. I think it helped that some of the Flood didn't really do much. Back outside, I ran while throwing plasmas behind me until I got into a hiding spot. There, I waited for all the sentinels to die, and that triggered the end of the level. I thought I was gonna die in this cutscene because I was getting really lit up by the Flood below me. Getting a gun on the library had to be the worst so far. I had to rely on a carrier Flood blowing up a combat form and hope it had a weapon I could use. After many tries it happened, and I got a pistol. With it I was able to kill another combat form, then I got put down at the very next encounter. This meant I had to go through the process of getting a gun again. Eventually, I got a plasma rifle, but I needed to not die. Somehow, I was able to kill everything. At the next encounter, I was able to get a plasma pistol. Each fight with the Flood started to drain my health because sometimes my guns would overheat before I killed even one combat form. I tried running through the next hallway, and that went about as well as you can imagine. Due to being on such low health, I had to slowly kill everything while backing up. Fortunately, a lot of the combat forms spawned with weapons I could use, so ammo wasn't really an issue. My reward for doing all of this was an overshield and a health pack. With the overshield, I could run while tanking a lot of shots. Then I threw a perfect plasma nade to blow up the combat forms blocking the elevator. On the second floor, some sentinels spawned, and while they were distracting the flood, I ran past. While I waited for Spark to open a door for me, I had the pleasure of watching a carrier form dance. To avoid having to deal with more boring flood fighting, I did some jumps to get around a big spawn of them, and since I didn't have a plasma to do a grenade jump, I had to wait for another door to open. What I did next had nothing to do with skill. It was 100% all luck. First, I shot at some flood, then threw a plasma behind me. Then I ran and was able to somehow dodge the shots from a rocket flood and survive long enough for a grenade to blow him up. Then I just kept running. There was another spawn of flood that somehow didn't kill me even though they could have all shot me to death. I then just ran to the elevator. On the next floor, after killing a couple combat forms, I got a health pack. After some more slow flood killing, I got to another locked door. I blew up the combat forms that were there, then hid so I wouldn't have to fight while I waited for it to open. In the next hallway, I ran past most of the flood because I needed to get to my next hiding spot before the flood in the room spawned. Here I once again waited for Spark to unlock the door for me. When the door opened, I killed the flood that had run through because I needed at least one plasma nade. I needed it for a big group of flood. After they died, I could get on the final elevator. I wanted to do a grenade jump to get through a partially open door, but I didn't have any plasmas. Thankfully, when I walked backwards, more flood spawned and I was able to get to from killing them. This was good because I failed on my first attempt.
Try it!
I did do it on my second attempt. For the final time, I hid in a corner while Spark unlocked a door. When the door to the end of the level opened, a ton of flood came through. I was very low on ammo. I focused on killing the combat forms that were actively shooting me. With only one red remaining, I jumped out of the way of the infection forms and picked up guns from the dead combat forms. There were still more flood between me and the index, so I ran left to avoid them, then jumped back around and booked it for the end trigger of the level. When I loaded into TB, I wasn't paying attention and I got the grave mine treatment. On the bright side, this is one of the few levels that spawns you with a plasma gun. I used the overcharge to kill the sentinels, but due to some of them missing, I wasted a lot of ammo. When the door opened, I tried to help the sentinels by shooting at the Covenant. This way, one of the elites would be distracted and I could kill the other one. By the time the red elite killed the sentinels, he was low enough that an overcharge killed him. Before I exited the control room, I did a trick of pressing the door button twice. This despawned all of the enemies between me and the Banshee. There were two elites in a corner, but because I knew they were there, I could kill them with nades. I walked down the empty tower and got in the Banshee. Now I needed to fly back up and press the button again to respawn all the enemies, or I would get soft locked. When I got to the first pulse generator, the beam was not spawned in.
Huh?
Turns out, I needed to fly down a little lower to trigger some music, then I could interact with the pulse generator. Clearing a couple of rooms of Covenant got me a little low, so when I saw some combat forms, I let them in the Covenant fight while I got a health pack. Even a gold elite wasn't strong enough to tank the overcharge plus plasma nade combo. At the exit of the room, there were a couple more elites. I let the flood handle them. I continued to just watch the action on the bridge. The next room was filled with flood. I took them out by baiting them all to run at me, then throwing plasma nades at the floor for them to run into. I knew the next hallway had a rocket flood, so I waited for the two elites to fight him, then I honorably third-partied. The second bridge was a lot more annoying because of two banshees. The first one got himself stuck. This made it very easy to blow him up with nade. I did have a problem though. I was running low on ammo. I waited for the Banshee to kill some of the flood on the bridge, then picked up their guns and used them to blow it up. The next two rooms of flood resupplied me with ammo and grenades. Right when I got outside, I went straight for the ghost and drove past everything, only making a pit stop at a health pack. On my next try, I was actually able to make it to the Banshee. At the next pulse generator, I slowly took out all the flood, making sure to be careful of the two with rockets. Once I lost my shields, I threw my 2 plasmas at the entrance and backed up while shooting until everything died. I flew all the way to the broken door, then walked back to a ghost, and then drove it to the door. I lined up the ghost and then rammed the Banshee into it to get it through the door. With the ghost, I could easily clear all the flood in the next area. Back outside there was a huge battle going on that I drove by. Even all the forces guarding the Banshee were not enough to stop me from just driving by. This did almost cause my Banshee to get blown up by some sentinels. All I had to do now was kill the last sentinels guarding the final pulse generator. The thing about keys is, the beginning of the level is right next to the end of the level, so through a trick called flood bumping, I could glitch myself through a thin wall separating me and the final section of the level. Doing this has the fun side effect of not activating any of the enemies until I trigger the cutscene with Captain Keys. I still needed to kill them all because I wanted ammo, and the moment I activated the unskippable cutscene, they could kill me. When the cutscene ended, I ran for the door and somehow made it through without dying to the Covenant on the other side. Then all I had to do was use some nades to blow up the final squads, and I could jump down to the Banshee and finish the level just like that. In the Maw, I spawned with a plasma rifle that I used with a nade to kill the first group of flood. I was able to get a plasma pistol, and that helped a lot with clearing the next group. I didn't feel like going through the long process of fighting hunters, so I just ran past them. On the bridge, I had one of the sloppiest kills on the elite. When the sentinels spawned, I just ran away from them. In the next room, I did a jump to avoid having to walk all the way up the ladder. Then I slowly cleared out enough flood in the hallway that I could run through. There were still flood on me. Luckily, there was an overshield I could pick up. I then got stuck in a corner while trying to hide from some sentinels.
Help! Help! Help me! Help!
On the bright side, the next time I made it back, I had a bit more overshield. With this extra overshield, I felt comfortable just running past the Covenant. In the engine room, I discovered something bad. My plasma nades weren't blowing up the reactor vents. I tried from multiple angles, but it just wouldn't do anything. This was so sad because I had gotten this far without having to use anything but my Covenant weapons. Unfortunately, to progress, I had to use frags and rockets to blow up the reactor. As soon as I was done, I swapped out my rocket for a plasma rifle. The final fight of the level went just like the beginning of the game. I spammed grenades. After completing the Warthog run, I had officially beat Halo CE while only using Covenant weapons to kill enemies, since I did have to use human explosives on the reactor. This challenge was hard because whenever I play CE, I am carried by guns like the pistol, shotgun, sniper, and rocket launcher. Limiting myself to just Covenant weapons made me have to think a lot more about each enemy encounter. The star of the show was 100% the plasma pistol, not only because of its overcharge, but the tap fire does crazy damage in this game. If you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot if you subscribe.